Hello and welcome to another My NT Marriage video. This is a recent event. It happened just last night. And it's a perfect example for me to give to you with regards to Cassandra syndrome, protagonism, hypocrisy. I was talking with my son last night and we stayed up late, we got a bit rowdy. I put the kettle on and we had to raise our voices to talk above the kettle. And this woke hubby and he came out and grumpily told us off. We're making too much noise, keep it down. So I know that he has a point, absolutely he has a point. And we were only really noisy for a little while the kettle was on, and we were quiet after that. So we did what he asked. In the morning he's grumpy and having words with us because we ruined his sleep. There's a whole bunch of other things that go behind that, such as him waking up an hour before he came to tell us off for waking him. But anyway, he's angry, he's telling us off, he has a point, we woke him, we were being too noisy. And my son is surprised and shocked that I don't apologise. And from his perspective, he doesn't know the history or anything. So the history, of course, there's always backstory, and this is where it gets really tricky because Aspies don't often remember there's backstory. Anyway, if I go to have an afternoon nap and I say to hubby, I'm having an afternoon nap, please keep the volume down, don't wake me, I will be woken by rowdy kids who are playing some noisy game right outside the bedroom door or coming into the bedroom while I'm sleeping. In other words, I'm often woken when I have a nap, even when I told him I'm having a nap. I've asked him and discussed with him to please not close the curtains. If he comes into the room and sees me napping and the curtains are open, do not close them, because sliding the curtain rod against sliding the curtains against the metal curtain rod makes a noise and wakes me up every time. And he repeatedly does that. So I've asked him, he's forgotten, he keeps doing it. I can't explain the whys and wherefores behind that, it just happens. Needless to say, my sleeps and naps and such are often interrupted by him. And we've discussed this because it's not as though it happens and I say nothing. Now, I don't usually have an attack, but there are definitely times where I've just snapped. What the hell, why did you wake me? He doesn't apologise or explain why he did it. He just kind of closes the curtain. It's kind of funny when you think about it. He'll close the curtain and I'll wake up. Instantly be looking at him with this frown on my face, like literally thinking, what the hell? What are you doing? Why are you there? You've just woken me. And he's downstairs going like, oops, I thought I was doing it quietly. I don't know. Anyway, my sleeps are always interrupted. There is no apology. There is no stopping. He's not stopping closing the curtains. It's just something. The only reason the kids aren't waking me anymore is because they've outgrown being noisy near mum while she's sleeping. They've learned, you know. Anyway, so from my perspective, I'm thinking, I don't owe you an apology any more than you give me apologies. And even though you're the one on the spectrum with autism and you have a mental condition that prohibits you from remembering to not close the curtain rods when your wife is napping, doesn't mean that nobody should ever be doing the behaviour back to you. And that's where I draw the line. I think that regardless of your situation, your condition, your mental well-being, etc., you should not be doing to people things that you don't like being done to you. So when he has a shot at me for waking him when he's sleeping, yes, he has a point. Yes, we kept it down after he said so because we realised that he had a point, but he repeatedly does it to me, and therefore I don't really owe him not doing it. And he doesn't apologise, so I don't owe him an apology. And that's not out of spite. That's not out of, well, you know, you're bothering me, so I'm going to bother you. I didn't wake him deliberately, for a starter. It was an accident. And it's not something that I do regularly. And he does the same thing in return, so we're kind of even in that sense. And yes, he doesn't understand why he does what he does, whereas I'm neurotypical and I have more of an insight. And I suppose fundamentally you could have said I knew better than to put the kettle on late at night when he was sleeping. Though in my defence, he usually doesn't wake. And the point being, because there's always a point, of course, is what's good for the goose is good for the gander, number one. If you don't like it being done to you, don't do it to others. And if you do it to others and you're kind of aware that you're doing it to others and you're still doing it anyway, then bad luck if it's done to you because, you know, you're doing it as well. If it is okay for you to do, it is okay for others to do. And if it isn't okay for others to do, then you really shouldn't be doing it. And that's been my motto from the get-go in this relationship. Don't treat me in a way that you would not want to be treated. I really try to stand my ground about that. So back to the point. There's history behind all this. So he's grumpy, I apologise, all is done. That's how simple it looks to others. You did something that upset him, he's telling you it upset him, you should be saying sorry. I would prefer to say, I won't do it again, I get your point, but nonetheless, the history behind it, I have all this kind of angst and bad memories around trying to sleep. And also, it doesn't stop for me. He's going to do it again later. That's all there is to it. And so because there's all this history there, people don't understand your reaction, your position behind it, the reason you said or did what you said or did. You look like a protagonist, you look like a 5-year-old having a tantrum. You look like the mafia saying, well, you shot my cousin, so I'm gonna shoot yours, you know, crazy stuff. And this in itself is Cassandra syndrome, where somebody's pushing you to a point where you give a certain reaction and nobody understands why you're doing it. And if I can just interject for a moment and get back to a previous video where I talked about autism and Cassandra syndrome. Let's say you're in an office and the light is flickering. You know, it's one of those bulbs, it's on its way out and it is driving you insane. And somebody comes up and asks you something and you're so annoyed by the light that you snap at the person. That's not so much Cassandra syndrome in that you weren't believed that something drove you to it. Cassandra syndrome is something that is ongoing for a starter. It can't just be a little flicker of a light and somebody spoke to you. It's an ongoing situation where somebody repeatedly does something to you. So an employee coming up and poking you in the arm every time they speak to you. And then you tell people that this person keeps poking you in the arm every time they come and speak to you. And that person says, that's ridiculous, they don't do that to me. That person's really good, I don't know what you're talking about. That's Cassandra syndrome. You're not really understood or believed. So that's just an adjunct to the point of this video. My children don't know the history. A lot of it happened before they were born, a lot of it happened when they were little, and an exorbitant amount of it has happened when they're not around. So they don't know the day-ins and day-outs and the niggles and the constant poking in the arm. So when I snap, or in this case, wake my husband up and not apologise, because I feel like, hey, you do this to me all the time as well, and There's never repercussions and it's never resolved and it's just going to be ongoing. That agitates me. And I can't explain all that to my son in that moment because I sound petulant. Well, he does it to me, so I don't owe him an apology. That's how it comes across. But really, it is, you have no idea. Years and years and years and years and years that he's been waking me up when I have asked him to not to. I'm having a nap, keep the noise down, please be quiet, don't do it. It's still happening. I'm incredulous by now. I mean, I've given up the fact of even trying to get him to let me have a nap. That's the ins and outs of it. And so when I wake him up once in a blue moon, just one of those things. He does it to me, I do it to him, no apology needed. That's my view on it. That's my view. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I may seem like the protagonist for not apologising, and my son is watching me and seeing I didn't apologise. But there's always way more to the story than meets the eye. Anyway, over to you. Let me know, can you relate to this? In what ways are you the protagonist? For people on the spectrum, in what ways can you see that you're doing something repeatedly that you would admittedly dislike if it was being done to you? Comment below, love to hear from you. And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it.